In the dim glow of a neighborhood coffee shop, where fresh scones mingled with the earthy aroma of brewing tea, the rain outside drummed a steady rhythm against the fogged windows. It was one of those evenings where the world outside felt blurred and distant, inviting strangers to linger a little longer inside. Marcus leaned back in his worn leather armchair, his fingers tracing the rim of a half-empty mug. He wore a simple gray flannel shirt over faded khakis, the outfit that blended into the background of any ordinary day. To the casual observer, he was just another guy escaping the downpour. Still, Marcus Hale was anything but ordinary, a tech visionary, whose startup had quietly amassed a fortune in sustainable energy solutions, making him one of the city's unspoken titans. Beside him was his 5-year-old son, Theo, perched on a booster seat with her legs swinging just above the floor. The boy's tousled brown hair fell into his eyes as he meticulously arranged a set of colorful wooden blocks on the low table between them, building what he insisted was a robot castle to protect against imaginary invaders. Theo's laughter bubbled up softly every time a block wobbled, a sound that always managed to pierce through Marcus's guarded heart. Their ritual was blind dates in neutral spots with Theo as the unwitting filter. It had been his 4th in a month, each one dissolving into polite disinterest the moment Theo's presence registered as more than a cute accessory. Women who arrived in designer heels, eyes scanning for status symbols only to falter when a child tugged at their sleeve for attention. The door chimed a soft tinkling that cut through the hum of conversation. Marcus glanced up, his pulse quickening just a fraction. She entered with the grace of someone who didn't demand the room's attention, but claimed it anyway. Dark waves of hair tied back in a loose ponytail, a forest green coat, dripping rain onto the mat, paired with practical boots, and a canvas tote slung over one shoulder. No jewelry that caught the light, no hurried makeup to mask the day's wear. Just Elena scanning the space until her gaze landed on him. Marcus, she ventured, her voice warm like the shop's ambient lighting. He rose, offering a small smile. "That's me. Elena." "Right? Come on in, traffic must be a nightmare in this weather." She shrugged off her coat, revealing a simple knit sweater and jeans, and slid into the seat across from him. Her eyes, a deep hazel that seemed to hold stories of their own, immediately drifted to Theo, who had paused his building to peer at her with unabashed curiosity. "And who's the master architect here?" she asked, tilting her head toward the blocks with genuine intrigue. Theo beamed, pushing a tower forward. "I'm Theo. This is my robot castle. It shoots laser beams at bad guys." Elena's laugh was light, unforced, like wind chimes in a breeze. "Laser beams. That's brilliant. Way better than plain old lasers. Those sound way too serious. Mind if I add a drawbridge? Every castle needs one for sneaky escapes." Theo's eyes widened in delight, and before Marcus could process it, Elena was on the floor beside him, her fingers deftly stacking a block to create a hinged gate. She didn't glance at the menu propped on the table or probe Marcus about his vague consulting job. Instead, she dove into Theo's world, asking about the castle's defenses and inventing sound effects for the lasers that had Theo in stitches. Marcus watched, a quiet astonishment settling in his chest. For the first time in these setups, the air felt easy, uncharged with the usual undercurrent of appraisal. They chatted in fits and starts over the next 20 minutes, steaming lattes arriving unbidden scones, shared in crumbly pieces. Marcus mentioned he tinkered with green tech ideas, keeping it light. Elena nodded, then turned back to Theo, quizzing him on his favorite superheroes and why robots needed feelings. When Theo sneezed mid-story, she pulled a pack of tissues from her tote without fanfare, dabbing his nose with the gentleness of someone who'd done it 100 times. Then Elena's phone buzzed, once, twice, insistent. She glanced at it, and her easy smile faltered, replaced by a shadow of urgency. She stood abruptly, gathering her coat. "I'm so sorry. I hate to cut this short, but something's coming up. It was charming meeting you both." Marcus rose too, brow furrowing. "Everything okay?" "We just got started." She hesitated, her hand on the chair back. "It will be. I promise. Take care of that castle, Theo. Make sure the lasers are charged." She ruffled his hair lightly, then turned toward the door. A pang hit Marcus, sharp and unexpected, not rejection, but the echo of connection slipping away. This woman who had knelt on a sticky coffee shop floor without a second thought had made his son light up like a solar panel in full sun. He stepped forward, his voice low but steady as he caught her wrist gently. "Wait, please don't go. You're the only one who stayed." Elena paused, looking down at his hand on hers, then up into his eyes. There was a flicker there, surprise warmth, a thread of something neither could name yet. Rain pattered harder outside, as if urging her to linger, but she offered a soft smile and slipped away into the storm, leaving the shop's bell to toll her exit. That night, Marcus tucked Theo into bed, in the quiet expanse of his modest brownstone, far from the sprawling estate he kept under wraps for weekends like this. The boy clutched a napkin Elena had doodled on a quick sketch of a robot with a beaming face and laser beam arms. "Did you like Elena, buddy?" Marcus asked, pulling the quilt up to Theo's chin. Theo yawned, nodding solemnly. "She made the castle fly. With sound effects. Can we build with her again?" Marcus chuckled, though his throat tightened. "Maybe. She was great at it." He lingered after Theo drifted off the house, settling into silence, broken only by the distant hum of city traffic. His mind replayed the evening, Elena's laugh blending with Theo's, the way she'd leaned in without agenda. It had been 2 years since his wife Clara had been taken by a rare autoimmune storm, swift, merciless, leaving him adrift in a sea of board meetings and bedtime stories. Marcus Hale's company, Verdant Dynamics, had pioneered breakthroughs in solar grid tech, earning him Forbes whispers and venture capital floods. But success had armored him. Dates became interrogations, connections, superficial. He craved someone who saw the dad first, the innovator second, if at all. Across town, in a cramped walk-up apartment overlooking a bustling market street, Elena let the door click shut behind her, leaning against it with a weary exhale. Rain had soaked through her coat, but the ache in her chest chilled her most. "I'm home," she called, voice steady despite the tremor in her hands. From the living room, a raspy reply. "Took you long enough. The city's not that big." Elena smiled faintly, peeling off her wet layers and padding toward the couch where her grandmother Rosa reclined under a knit afghan. At 82, Rosa was a force, sharp-tongued, story-rich, but the years had carved frailty into her frame, her once vibrant spirit dimmed by congestive heart failure that demanded constant vigilance. Tonight's call had been a false alarm, a skipped pill, and a dizzy spell. But Elena had bolted from the coffee shop anyway, heart racing through the downpour. Was the date a disaster? Rosa asked, peering over her glasses with that knowing glint. Elena sank beside her, pressing a cool cloth to Rosa's forehead. Not even close. He was real. And his son Theo's, a little genius with blocks, built a whole kingdom. Rosa's eyes twinkled. Sounds dangerous. A man with a kid. That's double the heartstrings. Elena traced the Afghan's patterns, memories surfacing unbidden. She'd been Rosa's anchor since her parents' car accident a decade ago, trading dreams of travel for night shifts at the community library and endless doctor runs. Love had always been a deferred chapter, too risky, when one wrong turn could unravel everything. But Marcus's quiet plea at the door, the way Theo had leaned into her side like she'd always been there, stirred something dormant, a longing for roots that didn't demand sacrifice. In the days that followed, Marcus found himself unraveling the thread of that evening. No last name, no number, just Elena etched on a napkin like a riddle. He replayed conversations in boardrooms with half his mind elsewhere. Theo's questions about the castle lady constantly echoing. By Friday, resolve hardened. He couldn't let it fade. A quick search through mutual friends from the dating app led him to the library where she volunteered shelving books in the children's wing, her name tag confirming it all. He arrived on a crisp autumn afternoon, Theo's small hand in his clutching a bouquet of wild sunflowers wrapped in butcher paper. The library smelled of aged paper and polished wood, sunlight slanting through tall windows onto colorful rugs. Elena was midway up a ladder, sliding a picture book into place when she spotted them. Her ladder creaked as she descended, surprise softening into a tentative smile. "You tracked me down," she said, brushing dust from her skirt. "Should I be flattered or file a report?" Marcus extended the flowers and Theo peeked from behind his leg. "Flattered, I hope. I owe you an apology for the dramatic exit line, and for not saying sooner. Theo's been talking about your drawbridge non-stop." Theo stepped forward shyly. "Hi, Elena. We brought sunflowers for your library castle." Elena's knees bent to his level, her fingers grazing a petal. "You remembered my ideas. That's some top-tier robot engineering." She straightened, meeting Marcus's gaze. "Apology accepted, but only if we test that drawbridge over ice cream." They chose a nearby parlor with checkered floors and stools that spun in endless circles. Theo claimed the middle seat at the counter, his spoon a conductor's baton, as Elena narrated the epic battle of the sprinkles between vanilla and chocolate. Marcus watched the knot in his chest loosening with each shared glance. He said, "You're a natural with him over the diner's jukebox croon. Most people, they don't know where to start." Elena shrugged, wiping a smudge of fudge from Theo's chin. "Kids are the best storytellers. They don't edit for effect, just pure imagination. Reminds me why I love this job." Plates cleared. Conversation flowed like the parlor's root beer floats. Elena shared tales of her grandmother's wild youth in post-war Italy. Marcus confessed to Theo's obsession with eco-inventors. Laughter wove through it all until a familiar voice shattered the bubble. "Elena, are you slumming it with the PTA crowd?" They turned to see Javier, a fellow librarian with slicked-back hair and a perpetual smirk, sauntering over in his corduroy blazer. He eyed Marcus's flannel and Theo's block-stained fingers, then leaned on the counter with exaggerated casualness. "The app guy, huh? I figured you'd aim higher. Maybe someone with a corner office, not playdates." Elena's posture stiffened, but her voice stayed level. "Javier, this is Marcus and Theo, and we're exactly where we want to be." Javier chuckled undeterred. "Come on, single dad vibes. That's a full-time gig. You deserve a break, not a built-in babysitting service." Theo frowned up at him. "What's wrong with dads?" Before Marcus could interject, Elena's hand found Theo's under the table, squeezing reassuringly. "Nothing at all," she said firmly, her gaze locking on Javier's, "and being a great parent. That's the ambition I respect most, more than any title or tie." Javier blinked, caught short, and mumbled a retreat, his footsteps fading into the parlor's chatter. Marcus exhaled, turning to her. "You didn't have to defend us like that." "I know," Elena replied, her thumb brushing Theo's knuckles. But it felt right. In the golden haze of falling leaves, their worlds began to overlap like chapters in an open book. Weekends brought park picnics where Elena and Theo engineered leaf-powered gliders, launching them from hilltops with whoops of glee. Tuesday evenings turned into kitchen experiments at Elena's apartment. Theo's volcano cakes erupting with baking soda fizz, Rosa regaling them with tales of Sicilian feasts from her armchair. Rainy Sundays meant fort-building marathons under blankets' flashlights, casting heroic shadows on the walls. Marcus hadn't known this rhythm since Clara effortless unscripted a quiet mending of frayed edges. Yet with every stolen touch, every late-night text, the shadow of his secret grew. Elena knew him as a solar consultant, a half-truth that chafed like an ill-fitting suit. He almost confessed one night watching her tuck Theo in after a story hour, her voice a lullaby against the storm outside. The words hovered, but fear clamped them down. What if the revelation shattered the fragile normalcy they'd built? It cracked first at the library during a slow shift. Javier waved a glossy tech insert from the weekend paper, grinning like he'd unearthed treasure. Elena, check this. Verdant Dynamics, the quiet solar empire. Their CEO's a ghost story. But look at this shot. He shoved it her way, Marcus years younger in a tailored vest, against a backdrop of gleaming panels, the caption lauding his billion-dollar pivot to clean grids. Elena's stomach dropped. The face was unmistakable, etched with the same quiet intensity she'd traced in candlelight. She murmured an excuse and fled to the break room, the paper clutched like evidence. Lies or layers. The hoodie, the blocks, the please performance art. For the jaded, her phone stayed silent through his calls, texts unread. By Thursday, Marcus appeared at the library's entrance, Theo at his side with a new block set. But Elena watched from the stacks, heart warring with hurt, until they left with shoulders slumped. That evening, Theo's questions pierced the quiet drive home. Did Elena forget our fort? Is she mad at the robots? Marcus gripped the wheel tighter, forcing a smile. I don't think so, champ. Sometimes grown-ups need a minute to build their own drawbridge. But sleep evaded him, the brownstone's walls closing in. He couldn't lose this. Not the woman who'd turned his son's world electric, not the spark that had reignited his own. Sunlight pooled on the library's worn oak floors, the next afternoon dust motes dancing like fireflies in the beams. Elena straightened a display of autumn folk tales, her mind, a whirl of what-ifs, when the door swung open with purposeful quiet. Marcus stood there, Theo clutching his pant leg, in the familiar flannel and khakis, no armor, just raw intent. Elena, he said, voice a low anchor in the hush. She set the book down, arms crossing like a shield. You found the article. He nodded, Theo waving shyly before scampering to a beanbag with his blocks. I did, and I hate how it landed like a bomb instead of a bridge. He stepped closer, eyes earnest. Whole truth, I'm Marcus Hale, founder of Verdant Dynamics. The panels, the patents, the profiles, it's all real. But that's the stage version, the one for investors and interviews. She held his gaze unyielding. And us. Was that scripted too? The coffee shop Theo's castle was, just another test run. No, he said, fierce and immediate. Never a test. After Clara. I got tired of being the prize first, the person second. Dates turned into auditions. Women sizing up the empire before the man. So I stripped it down, showed up as the dad who burns toast and loses at block wars, to see who showed up for Theo. For me, Elena's resolve wavered her eyes, flicking to Theo now, stacking with focused joy. And I did. But trust isn't a one-way grid, Marcus. When you hold back, it leaves shadows. He closed the gap, voice softening. I was terrified you'd see the headlines and bolt that the Solar King would eclipse the guy who wants lazy Sundays. But I like you, Elena, the way you turn stories into adventures, the patience in your laugh. I care. About you, about this. Silence bloomed thick with the library's whispers. Then softly, I wasn't hurt by the money. I was scared it meant none of it was real. That I'd fallen for a version, not the whole. Marcus reached for her hands, tentative. It's all whole now. No more hiding. Just us if you'll have the mess of it. She searched his face. Then Theo's distant hum of block clacks. A breath escaped her laced with relief. I want the whole story, all of it. Winter crept in on frosted breaths and starlit skies. But Marcus surprised Elena with a cabin escape to the Adirondacks, a timbered haven by a frozen lake far from urban hum. Snow blanketed the pines like powdered sugar, the air crisp with pine sap and wood smoke. They arrived at dusk, Theo's boots crunching virgin powder as he dashed toward the porch arms, wide to the wonder. Elena unpacked by the stone fireplace flames licking logs into a cozy roar, while Marcus hauled in sleds and thermoses of cocoa. Outside, Theo romped in the yard, towing a red sled like a triumphant explorer, his scarf trailing like a comet's tail. Elena joined him on the porch steps, mug steaming in her hands, the cold nipping at her cheeks as she watched Marcus kneel to pack a snowball. Theo's giggles echoing off the trees. She teased, "You've got this escape thing down," breath fogging the air. Marcus glanced back, snowflakes catching in his hair. Blame Theo, he's the compass. Snow plus speed equals magic. Their peace was fractured in a heartbeat. Theo's sled, greased for velocity, veered wildly on a hidden ice patch, hurtling toward the lake's treacherous edge, where the ice thinned to black water. Theo Marcus's shout tore the air, but Elena was already moving, boots, forgotten coat flapping, as she sprinted across the crust, arms outstretched. The boy tumbled free just as the sled plunged through cracking ice like gunfire. Elena lunged, snatching Theo mid-slide, rolling them both clear, in a tangle of limbs and snow. They landed in a drift, her body curled protectively over his heart, hammering as the lake groaned in protest. Marcus crashed through the powder seconds later, face ashen, dropping to cradle them. "Theo, Elena, are you?" She gasped, snow in her lashes, a gash on her palm from the scramble. "He's okay. We're okay." Theo whimpered into her neck, tiny fists knotted in her sweater. Marcus enveloped them, his embrace a fortress against the wind's howl. "You saved him," he murmured, voice breaking. "God, Elena." The fire's warmth chased the chill back inside, but tension lingered like embers. Theo dozed on the rug, wrapped in a quilt, his sled abandoned by the door. Elena perched on a stool at the rough-hewn counter, Marcus dabbing antiseptic on her scraped palm with steady hands. The sting made her hiss, but she waved it off, perks of being the hero, battle scars. He didn't smile, just held her hand longer than needed, tracing the bandage's edge. "You didn't hesitate. For him. For us." Her eyes met his over the flame-lit room. "He's family. You're both worth the dive." Marcus set the kit aside, drawing her close until she slid from the stool into his arms. His lips brushed her knuckles, then her wrist, a trail of quiet vows. "You've been our light since that rainy shop, no more half steps. Marry me, Elena. Build this life for its failures, all of it." Tears pricked her eyes, hot against the fire's glow. "Yes, 1,000 times." Spring bloomed in riotous color at the Hale family vineyard in the Hudson Valley. Verdant rows of vines, heavy with promise, under a canopy of strung lanterns. It was Verdant Dynamics Innovation Gala, a nod to roots amid the tech elite, but tonight pulsed with personal gravity. In a charcoal suit that hinted at his command without shouting, Marcus greeted arrivals at the stone archway, his gaze sweeping for the ones who anchored him. Then headlights swept the gravel, Elena emerging in a gown of midnight silk, elegant lines, hugging her frame, her dark hair swept with wildflowers. Beside her, Rosa leaned on a carved cane, eyes bright with unaccustomed finery, and Theo bounded out in a tiny vest, clutching a vine-woven crown he'd designed that morning. Marcus said, "You look like Vineyard queens," sweeping Theo up for a spin before kissing Elena's cheek. "Ready to dazzle." Rosa snorted, but her grip on Elena's arm was proud. "Lead on, grandson in waiting. We've got stories to steal the show." The evening wove magic string quartets, mingling with fireflies, guests, toasting breakthroughs over elderflower spritzes. Marcus's practical warm siblings folded Rosa into their circle, with tales of harvest mishaps, while Theo inspected the vines, Elena at his side like a co-conspirator. Laughter rose like mist from the river below, the air alive with belonging. As twilight deepened, Marcus ascended the low stage amid the vines, a crystal goblet chiming for quiet. The crowd hushed, investors, pioneers kin, but his focus narrowed to Elena, radiant under lantern glow. Theo perched on her hip, Rosa beaming nearby. He began to say that these gatherings honor what we've built, voice carrying like a well-tuned panel. But tonight, it's about what creates us. His eyes locked on hers. I chased fortunes in circuits, and sun-thinking security was the win. Then Elena walked into a coffee shop, blocks in hand, and showed me home isn't a holding, it's hands reaching out. Applause rippled, warm and swelling. She's the innovator who taught me vulnerability powers the grid, who saw a boy and his dad, not the name, and stayed to blueprint a family. Elena, you are our forever harvest. Tears traced her cheeks as Theo pointed, whispering, "That's our fort." "Mama." Elena laughed, pulling him close. Rosa's hand steady on her shoulder. For the first time, Elena wasn't the caretaker in shadows. She was centered, claimed, cherished. Marcus descended, enfolding her in the crowd's gentle roar. "I was always the side character," she breathed against him. "Not anymore," he whispered, forehead to hers. "You're the story." Dawn gilded the vineyard's pergola vines, curling like green veins over the breakfast spread. Crusty loaves, fresh cheeses, bowls of ripe berries glistening in the light. A light mist clung to the grass bird song threading the air, with melody the world hushed in that fragile hour before full wake. Theo clambered onto a cushioned bench, feet dangling as he attacked a stack of pancakes, dusted with powdered sugar and syrup rivers, carving paths down his chin. "These are cloud castles," he declared, fork aloft like a scepter. Elena sat cross-legged on the adjacent chaise, cradling a pot of herbal tea, her robe loose against the morning's promise. Stray curls framed her face, catching the sun's first kiss. Rosa occupied the wicker rocker beside her, nibbling toast, with deliberate savor, her color brighter than in months, the vineyard's air a balm to her weary lungs. Plates passed in easy harmony. Theo's pancake fortress toppling into giggles, Elena's berry tales drawing Rosa's wry interjections. It was the unpolished poetry of mornings earned through storms weathered, secrets shared, and leaps taken. Then Theo, syrup smeared and sage, tilted his head. "Papa," he said, voice piping clear, "is Elena staying, like with the vines and the robots, forever?" The question hung soft as dew, profound as roots, delving deep. Marcus paused mid-pour of coffee, his gaze crossing to Elena's, hers shimmering fingers, laced with Rosa's in a quiet anchor. A tentative yet genuine smile bloomed on her lips, blooming with the light. He rose, unhurried, circling the table to kneel amid them, arms opening wide to draw in Elena, Theo. Rosa, a circle unbreakable. His lips pressed to Theo's crown. "Yeah, buddy," he murmured, voice husky with the weight of yes. Forever and always. Elena's tears spilled silent and sweet, not of endings, but arrivals of hands that held through fractures of homes, forged in the quiet courage of choice. Her palm found Marcus's, intertwining with the certainty of dawn. Sunlight wove through the leaves, gilding their joined hands, the laughter that followed a symphony of what was and all that would be. No longer echoes in empty shops or guardians in the wings, but woven whole, A family resilient as vines in resilient soil, chosen not by chance, but by the fierce grace of loving fully. And so what sparked in a rain-lashed coffee shop unfurled into a legacy of light, reminding us that true power lies not in empires built, but in the tender circuits of hearts entwined. If this tale warmed your soul, picture the countless others yearning to unfold. Subscribe to Kindness and Love Tales for more whispers of wonder, where compassion bridges every gap. These stories remind us that love is the quiet revolution we crave in our hurried world.